suspects is now underway after a weekend house fire quickly turned into a homicide investigation. Irondequoit police have confirmed a mother, father, and 2 small children were found dead inside their home Saturday. The police chief calls this the worst he's ever seen. Natalie Kutchko heard from investigators on this tragic case today. She joins us now live in the studio with what we know so far. Natalie.
Yeah, Teresa, investigators have spent the entire weekend not giving up to process the scene and also comb through extensive evidence at the family's Irondequoit home. As mentioned, a mom, dad, and their 2 small kids, ages 2 and 4, were found dead in the basement. The police chief says the pursuit to find those responsible is only beginning.
When you murder innocent children, there's no excuse for it.
A clear message from Irondequoit Police Chief Scott Peters, the chief fighting back tears, identifying the 4 victims, a family murdered at their home on Knapp Avenue early Saturday morning. 30-year-old Fraime Ubaldo, 26-year-old Marangely Moreno-Santiago, and their 2 children, 4-year-old Evangeline Ubaldo Moreno and 2-year-old Sebastian Ubaldo Moreno, were found dead in the basement of their home by firefighters on scene.
Due to the condition of the bodies, it was readily apparent that this was going to be a homicide investigation. We took 2 days to make sure that we methodically cleared that location. The fire did not help, but it didn't hinder us. We wanted to make sure that we went floor to floor and didn't miss any piece of information that needed to be collected to ultimately bring these monsters to justice.
Police say the family purchased the home in the last few years, the parents showing no criminal history or suspicious calls to the residents. What is typically a quiet neighborhood has been shaken with grief.
We were heartbroken. Our hearts go out to the families, go out to their friends, go out to the neighbors. For suffering through this horrific event. And we will not stop until justice is served.
As the investigation continues to identify and hold the suspects accountable, Chief Peters says in his more than 30-year career in law enforcement, this case is unlike anything he's ever seen.
It's the worst thing I've ever seen. I'll remember it for life. Simple as that. Just looking at the condition of the bodies, you can tell that these were not wounds consistent with, the bodies it didn't have damage to them consistent with being in a fire. Mom was being a mom, protecting her children. Dad, I can't say, but nobody should ever be able to do this or be able to think that they could do that to a child. So, let's just leave it at that.
While the police chief says he does believe this was a targeted case, he is unable to clarify a clear motive at this time or a connection right now between the victims and the suspects. A cause of the fire and cause of deaths are all still being worked out. And as the number of suspects is unknown to police at this time, they ask anyone with information that could help in their investigation to please contact the Irondequoit Police Department. That number right there on your screen, 585-336-6000. Reporting in studio, Natalie Kutchko, News 8.
What's good, y'all? This is Duck No Rec World Media. Welcome back to another episode of the Slogan Report, where we dive deep into the stories that impact our communities and the media narratives that shape perception. I'm Golden the Slogan, and today's episode, it's a difficult one, an unspeakable tragedy that has left the community in shock and a family destroyed. On August 31st, a horrifying scene unfolded in the Irondequoit suburbs of Rochester, New York, where 2 adults and 2 children were found dead inside their home. The family of 4 have been brutally murdered, and the community is now left grappling an unthinkable loss. It was early Saturday morning when authorities were called to Knapp Avenue residents following reports of a fire. What firefighters discovered inside was far more horrifying. 30-year-old Fraime Ubaldo, 26-year-old Marangely Moreno-Santiago, and their 2 children, 4-year-old Evangeline and 2-year-old Sebastian Ubaldo, have all been stabbed to death. Irondequoit police have arrested 34-year-old Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano.
Allegedly wanted for murder in the Dominican Republic and using a fake ID to make his way into the United States.
And the investigation is far from over. Police searching for other people wanted in this case. Team coverage on this evolving investigation as police urge anyone with information to come forward following this major arrest.
Family of 4 found stabbed to death in their burning home on Labor Day weekend. Under arrest tonight, 34-year-old Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano. He's accused of killing Fraime Ubaldo, Marangely Moreno-Santiago, and their 2 young children, Evangeline and Sebastian. Today, burial services were held for the mother and her children in Puerto Rico.
Police calling this case one of the worst they have ever seen. In the days after the killings, the community gathered in memory of the family as authorities worked to find a suspect.
Who had been charged with second-degree murder in connection with the deaths of the Ubaldo and Moreno family. But this tragedy, it turns out it has even deeper roots. Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano, a native of Dominican Republic, was apprehended shortly after the attack. But even as the community began to come up with terms with the arrest, authorities announced that they were seeking a second suspect in this case.
New tonight, a second suspect now being sought in the murder of an Irondequoit family, as we hear from the father of the young mother killed.
The only thing give me strength is because I want justice. I want justice for my daughter, and I want justice for my grandkids.
That grieving father searching for answers tonight. Good evening, I'm Matt Malloy. It comes as Irondequoit police identify a second suspect in the case they believe left the area after the murders. 13 WHAM's Carly Miner has the latest on the investigation and more from the father who spoke exclusively with 13 WHAM today. Carly, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Matt. As you might imagine, Luis Moreno told me his life will forever be changed following the loss of his only daughter and her 2 children. Luis Moreno says he hasn't been able to sleep since the phone call he received the morning of August 31st.
Well, that was the worst day of my life.
Now, investigators say they are searching for Luis Francisco Soriano, who goes by Jeffrey.
There's 2 families that have been destroyed. It's not only mine.
Police believe their wanted suspect is in Puerto Rico and was involved in the gruesome murders of the father, mother, and their 2 young children over Labor Day weekend. Home video provided to 13 WHAM News shows Soriano attending a family birthday party in 2023, with a family of 4 killed on Knapp Avenue, also in attendance.
That's sick. It's sick because I met that guy. I met that Jeffrey guy 2 years ago when I went my first summer to spend over there. My daughter watched her babysit his baby. That guy always was there at Fraime's house, and he was like Fraime's brother.
Soriano's 34-year-old brother, Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano, has been in Monroe County Jail since the first week of September. He's accused of fatally stabbing Fraime Ubaldo, Marangely Moreno-Santiago, and their 2 young children, 4-year-old Evangeline and 2-year-old Sebastian.
As a dad and grandparent, our duty is to protect our kid. And I'm always thinking that night or that morning, I wasn't there to protect my daughter and protect my grandbabies. And that's a pain and that I got inside me that it's never going to go away.
Irondequoit Police Chief Scott Peters says the 2 suspects are brothers, who the family confirms are cousins with Fraime.
He destroyed my life. He took part of my life. And to have to say bye to them, I don't wish that to anybody.
Anyone with information is asked to call the Irondequoit Police Department, the U.S. Marshal Service, or Crime Stoppers at 423-9300. Matt?
Francisco Soriano, also known as Jeffrey, believed to be hiding in Puerto Rico. Luis Francisco, who is not just an accomplice but a cousin to Marangely Moreno-Santiago, reportedly conspired with Julio Cesar to torture the kids and the family. The pain of this tragedy reverberates not only in the immediate neighborhood but also deeply within the family. Luis Moreno, the father of Marangely, has been vocal about his grief and his intimate loss his family is facing. Lewis said, "That was the worst day of my life. There's 2 families that have been destroyed. It ain't just mine." Lewis recalled the morning of August 31st when he received the heartbreaking news of his daughter's death. It's trauma no parent should have to endure. Irondequoit Police Chief Scott Peters described the attack as one of the most brutal he have ever seen, and the search of Luis Soriano continues as authorities believe he may have fled to Puerto Rico. Chief Scott Peters stated, "We believe Luis Francisco Soriano conspired with his brother to carry out this attack. This was not a random act of violence, but a calculated and horrendous crime. Police are urging anyone with information on Luis Francisco's whereabouts to come forward as the investigation continues." The Irondequoit community has been rocked by this tragedy, with many struggling to comprehend how such violence could strike so close to home. A memorial has been set up outside the family's home, where neighbors and friends have gathered to pay their respect.
And to tell you the truth, I've actually lost sleep over this. It's been on my mind heavily. Not because it breaks my heart.
Very sad. Don't have words to explain the sadness and the violence that is occurring.
David Marionetti has lived in the Knapp Avenue neighborhood all his life. He has never seen this type of police presence or heard of anything this horrific. His heart breaks for the family who lost their loved ones in this quadruple murder. The family gathered today and left stuffed animals and balloons at the front doorstep of the home where the bodies of Fraime Ubaldo and Marangely Moreno-Santiago were found early Saturday morning, along with their children, 4-year-old Evangeline and 2-year-old Sebastian.
It could be anybody. Nobody's caught. So whatever monster did this, or monsters did this, they're still here. Maybe they took off. Maybe they're our next door neighbor. Maybe they're still in the neighborhood. So it's scary.
Samuel Rivera has lived in the neighborhood for 26 years. He lives steps away from where the family was killed, but says he didn't hear anything.
2 little children that they don't know nothing. All they know how to do is play. To me, they look like a good family. They come out to the porch and they do their little, get together, and they talk to me all the time. One day they invite my granddaughter for a birthday party.
Another neighbor who didn't want to be identified on camera is still in shock and says she prays for justice for the family.
I just hope that the person that did it pays for it.
The Irondequoit police chief says this is the worst thing he has ever seen. And he's been in law enforcement for 30 years. They are working on leads, but haven't made any arrests yet. In Irondequoit, Marcia Augusta, News 10, NBC.
One neighbor said, "It's shocking. They were a loving family, and to think that someone so close could do this to them is unimaginable." Adding to the complexity of the tragedy, it is the fact that the suspects are related to the victims. Julio Cesar Marangely Moreno-Santiago, which has left those who knew the family grappling with even more questions. The children's godmother, who wishes to remain anonymous, spoke out about how close Luis Francisco was to the family.
Xiomara Weeks recalls the first time she met Luis Francisco Soriano, who Weeks knew as Jeffrey.
He was so close to them that you would never think that anything like this would actually happen. Fraime and Marangely and the kids would be outside under deck, and they would be cooking out, and he'll come over and spend time with them. So it's shocking. It's shocking.
Now, Jeffrey is wanted for murder for the deaths of his cousin, Fraime Ubaldo, his girlfriend, Marangely Moreno-Santiago, and their 2 children, 4-year-old Evangeline and 2-year-old Sebastian. Weeks says Fraime and Luis were close.
It actually did come across my mind that he was not there for the memorial for anything. So that was a huge red flag. They were very close. So when all this happened, to see that he was not around was concerning. It was alerting.
Irondequoit police believe Jeffrey accompanied his brother, Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano, to torture and kill the victims in the basement of their Knapp Avenue home. Investigators describe both brothers as career criminals. Soriano was arrested on September 7th and charged with second-degree murder for the deaths.
I'm still thinking that, this is like a nightmare.
He was always around. You would never think that anything like this would happen. They trust him. It's just heartbreaking. Despite the gravity of this crime, it seems the broader media has not given this case the attention you might expect. Why is that? Some community members believe that if this tragedy had occurred in a more affluent area or involved a different demographic, the media response might have been more extensive. Is this because the victims were immigrants or because the suspects were family? These are tough questions that need to be asked as we consider how to prioritize and report on such devastating events. As we close today's slogan report, we want to extend our deepest condolences to the families and friends affected by this senseless tragedy. This case is still developing, and we will continue to follow it closely. How do you feel about this situation if you live in Rochester or Irondequoit? Do you feel like it's a hidden agenda behind all this? Is it an isolated situation? Is Irondequoit still safe for the civilians and pedestrians? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you stay locked in. This is Duck No Wreck World Media, and more importantly, make sure you stay safe. It's your boy.
Back in 2016, when I was thinking about going to work for the company he was working for, I couldn't ask for a better kid. I loved him.